Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is back in the news. She appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe, and she had this to say about America's march towards progress under our current administration. Take a look.
And the idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, it's just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. And we were on the path toward that. I mean, imperfectly, lots of, bumps along the way. But I agree with you. We were on the right trajectory.
CBN's Billy Hallowell joins us now. Billy, what did you think about her response?
It's interesting because this march towards progress, you have to ask yourself, well, what does that mean, right? We're talking in this code here. The progress that I assume she's talking about is, in her mind, when abortion was, legal everywhere in the country, when Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. I don't know. I can't speak for her. But when I look at what's been happening, a lot of other people would take a different position. They would say the march towards progress is creating a country where unborn babies are not being slaughtered at will, where faith is a part of everyday life, where people aren't afraid of being canceled for breathing the wrong way. I think there's a real division in how people view what progress is. But in particular, I think that the part of her comments that obviously is getting attention is when she talks about this turning back the clock and recreating a world that never was dominated by, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion. I mean, what religion are we talking about? Christianity? That would be the religion that dominated, right? And I guess that's a religion of only white men. I mean, this is just actually a very bizarre statement when you break it down.
And that's the thing, is what is progress, right? If it's just some sort of abstract concept, then it can be anything, and I think the thing that's really marched the Western world towards progress actually isn't just enlightenment. It's leaning into that quote unquote certain religion, right? William Wilberforce, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, Martin Luther King, all these people were looking at these ideals, these biblical ideals that did march us towards progress. So singling out that certain religion to me is the red flag here. Elsewhere in this interview, she talked about freedom of speech and the kind of the tyranny of this current administration and the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing. And to me, that was almost just laughable. It's like, wait a second, when your side, if you want to call that, was in power, who shut people down? Who closed social media accounts? Who deplatformed people for having the audacity to say certain words like Hunter Biden laptop and ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine? Who were literally deplatformed, not just shunned and, sponsors were pulled. We're told they can't talk. We're penalized. We're in some cases, in different parts, penalized for just having the audacity to say things. So it seems very hypocritical. But I think when it comes to the idea of a certain religion, that is a red flag. And I think it's important to look at John 15, verse 18. But if the world hates you, keep in mind it hated me first. And I think that's what's important. The message of the gospel is offensive to quote unquote progress in certain spheres of politics. But to me, it's regressive, right? And they always say, pointing out, trust the science. It's like, okay, trust the science, but a man isn't a man can be a woman. And so I think it's a lot of doublespeak. It's a lot of platforming ideas that just don't even make a lot of sense. And so to me, as a historian, as someone who really has tried to understand where our liberties come from, what made this nation so extraordinary in the first place, I think it's people who had, quote unquote, a certain religion that actually were the driving forces behind a lot of the progress that we've made. And I think you can make the argument that a lot of the recent, quote unquote, progress has actually been not progress, but regress, limiting liberties, limiting different things that do stem from the Bible. But that's me going on my soapbox. So Billy, I'll give you the last word about this comment from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I think the last word is that this really points to the division we have again in this country. The fact that she's essentially blaming white men of a particular ideology and religion, for the issues, the damage. She said it's just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. And again, I would call people to say, well, what specifically are we aiming for? Because to your point, not just social media platforms deplatforming people. You had football coaches, one of them in particular, praying on the 50-yard line and after a game and having to go all the way to the Supreme Court to be able to win the right to do that. It's insanity what was happening with cancel culture and what has been happening throughout this country. And so I think what you have now is a shift back towards those values and a very clear, I can't read her heart, but I'm basing it on this interview, a very clear disdain for the moves that are happening that many people see as freedom fighting positive moves in a good direction. So look, we got to be praying for this country that more people would understand the truth. But these comments in particular, the religion one, I think are deeply troubling.